It's time we all talked about a serious problem in Iceborne. The problem? A lack of Ahtal-Ka. There's so many monsters with so little time, so little space in this game, it's honestly a big crime. Looking at all these environments and all these cool places, we have a serious lack of seriously cool faces. These new monsters are fantastic, their movesets are nice, but I wouldn't mind a few monsters returning in the Iceborne expansion, especially one with a crazy tail, one with golden scales and golden webs and a Dragonator to impale you right through the chest, or honestly most of your body, but if that doesn't work, then Ahtal Nest will make you go potty. So without further ado, and with plenty of time to savor it, let's talk about a monster who's surely a fan favorite. Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, it's time we had a good, long, detailed talk about the mantis in the room, Ahtal-Ka. The most recent end boss before the 5th generation. To me, it sort of feels like she got the short end of the stick, especially as in the West, we didn't even really get to fight her until after Monster Hunter World itself was released. That said, the fight is gorgeous, it is engaging, and it really pushes the boundaries of what we normally would expect from Monster Hunter, but in a way that is relatively believable and legitimately enhances the fight at hand. So the thought occurs to me, why couldn't we have Ahtal-Ka in the new world?
I can't think of a safe answer.
And that's because there isn't one. Ahtal-Ka legitimately could come to the new world, but why should she? And how could this possibly be implemented with all the different mechanics and fluidity of the 5th generation games? Well, starting with why, her fight really is amazing on so many levels, especially as a spectacle, but even more so for being a spectacle where for half of the fight your opponent is actually around the size of the average Rajang. Take that in for a moment. A fight this large, this important, this ambitious with a scale so massive in feeling contains a monster the size of a Rajang, and arguably she looks even smaller than him because of the way that it's all distributed, being thinner limbs and the mantis shape and such. But if you can pack so much awesome into such a small package, I think you totally deserve a chance to bring it out again, especially when you consider how many of the fight mechanics feel almost ancient now, even though Ahtal-Ka is an extremely recent creature as far as the Monster Hunter series goes. Not so much the base fight itself, I mean, the majority of the Dragonator and Girder stuff would still work perfectly.
I am Bender, please insert Girder.
It is much more so the mechanized portions. However, that said, the mechanized portion of the fight is honestly one of the coolest moments in the series to me. Like when she first takes out that mech, that is totally comparable in my mind to the first time I saw Shara Ishvalda's Spirit Bomb as an example, which means that the fight is more than capable of having that New World Spectacle monster kind of impact. And of course, on top of this, she isn't actually technically an Elder Dragon. She is a Neopteran, which basically just means insect. And while her skeleton is undeniably a little bit different than most insects, if we did see her come to the new world, it would likely open the door for a number of other insect-type monsters, or even possibly crabs, as her shape is arguably more comparable to Daimyo Hermitar than it is to most insects.
Crab people, crab people.
And, well, you know me, I would love to see me some insects and crabs up in this continent. As far as how the fight itself could be changed, well, I have a number of ideas. First up, yeah, of course, the ideal option would be to put her in a brand new unique map designed specifically for her, as with all super powerful creatures. But if that wasn't going to happen, the best place would probably either be the second phase version of the Shara Ishvalda zone, or an area built off of repurposed assets from the caverns of El Dorado to really play off the whole golden theme. However, for the sake of this, let's say Shara's second area, as it is just a really easy playground to imagine.
Imagination.
As I said earlier, I actually believe a lot of her base fight is pretty transferable. The grabbing of hunks of metal is totally doable, though it would probably look slightly better if we could see the things she grabs, or if the animation of it coming out of the ground was a little bit more dramatic, but for the most part, I love all of this. The taking items and placing it on her tail, using them as blunt objects, or even attaching more webs and slinging these massive objects around the place. It all works, though maybe have the motions be a little less planned and a little more fluid, because the mechanics of the new world would totally allow that. As far as the webbed status for hunters as a whole, I wouldn't be against it returning as is, but I could also just see it being reworked to something like a slow, where while you are webbed, you are literally just slower until you actively pull it off, just to make it a little bit more different from stun, and because I hate having no control over my movement.
Always look on the bright side of life.
But past that, I can even see her using her sort of massive web expulsion that just puts web-based traps all over the area. If I were to make any additions to this phase, I do have a couple of ideas. First up, the Clutch Claw. It's a part of the game now that just straight up wasn't previously. So one idea that I have that may or may not work as far as actual game design goes, but what if, instead of tenderizing, when you do the Clutch Claw tenderization attack on Ahtal-Ka's tail, it makes her drop whatever she is holding and she has to pick it up again. Sort of like an elongated flinch. But it would only work when she is unenraged, and doing it would probably enrage her. So just an alternate way to take advantage of that non-enraged Clutch Claw window. So you have the choice of either shoving her face into a wall or making her drop whatever she is holding. And, you know, if you wanted to, though, this one is a little more out there. Maybe we could even have her, like, grab a hunter's weapon once instead of a girder, and have a different moveset while she holds it, basically the moveset of the weapon. The hunter whose weapon she has would clearly be unable to attack, but the trick here is, if you clutch clawed her tail and do the weaponless tenderizer animation, you could actually rip your weapon back into your hands. It just sounds really badass to me. I don't know, that one's probably too far, but it sounded neat in my head, so here it is. As far as the mech itself, I do have quite a number of things that I would change personally. First off, the animation itself should probably be closer to Shar Ishvalda's Spirit Bomb. Dig underground, pull the thing together underground so it's more surprising, and then pop up all cool like in the corner of the arena fully formed. And hey, maybe even make it so it comes out of the ground on 2 feet and then falls onto the 4, which causes a massive reverberation attack type thing to really make the occasion extra special.
Oh shit, here we go again.
And to no one's surprise, I would change the combat of the mech phase, like the entire mech phase. None of that flinching the foot, arrows pointing out where to climb, slowly breaking egg stuff. Nah, that's far too basic for the new world in this 5th generation. What I suggest to replace it, however, might be a little bit interesting. Making this actually work would probably require redesigning Ahtal-Nesset a little bit, but what if you couldn't damage the mech itself, like even remotely? There would be wedge beetles or some other sort of equivalent clutchable point on top of one of the legs of the mech, and you use it to climb up. And once up there, instead of eggs, you are greeted with a relatively small but open platform. In the middle of this platform is Ahtal-Ka herself, holding up all the webs required to control the mech. Your goal here is to attack her and make her flinch enough that she drops enough of the webbing to disconnect Ahtal-Nesset entirely. But unlike normal, she can fight back a little bit more. Compare it to sort of like how Rajang and Deviljho act in pitfall traps, where they are definitely compromised. They are stuck there, and attacking is a struggle for them, but they will absolutely struggle, and they will try to attack. They will try to land any type of hit they can while in that position. She is clearly preoccupied, but whatever free limbs she may have will try to take you down, either physically or by firing webs. And then the cherry on top that really makes this phase work in my mind, the whole mech would occasionally shift, like she would angle it drastically, angling over to one side to the point where you would completely slide off of it unless you see it coming. You sheath your weapon and you sprint towards the angle to stay on before you continue to fight her.
Never in my life have I needed something so much and never known until I received it.
And honestly, that's about all I've got. Sure, I mean, I'm not a game developer, but I think at the very least these ideas could be some sort of inspiration for a far more interesting fight for Ahtal-Ka in the new world, which is something that I would absolutely love to see, no matter how long it takes to happen. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been how I would implement Ahtal-Ka in Iceborne. Do you like my ideas? What would you change to equip Ahtal-Ka for new world combat? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or important news about the kingdom Animalia. Rage, Content, and Hollow are all here, talking about the things you want to hear, so if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros. There's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.